Hello, fantastic fourth graders. We are going to get to work on math again today, and I hope you're so excited. Today we are going to practice rounding whole numbers to a given place value through the hundred thousands place. How are we going to do this? Well, we are going to review important vocabulary. We're going to use a number line to model rounding. We're going to determine which number another number rounds to, and then you are going to practice rounding numbers with a number line. We are going to do this because it's important to know how to round so we're able to use rounding to help us with estimation, and we're going to do that next week. Our important vocabulary word we have for this week is rounding, and when we round, we find a number that is close to the original number by changing it to the closest multiple of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is round to the nearest tens. So the first number that we are going to look at is the number 27, and I want to round this to the nearest 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is determine the two tens that we are going to round to. So I have our two tick marks right here, and I have to decide which two tens are going to be on either side of 27. So 27 is going to be 20 and 30. After I've decided that, I'm going to plot my given number. So I had 27, so I'm going to put that right about here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which number it is closest to. So is 27 closer to 20 or is 27 closer to 30? I want you to think about that for a second. If you said that 27 is closer to 30, you are correct. So what that means is that 27 rounds to 30, so it's closer to 30, so 27 rounds to 30. Let's look at another one. So this one we're going to round to the nearest tens also, but you'll notice that this number is a little bit different. This number has a hundreds place, which is fine. So you are still going to do the same thing. So any number that is in front of the tens place is going to stay the same. So I'm still going to have 600 every single time. So here you can see I have 640 and I have 650. So those are my two benchmark numbers. 645 is going to go somewhere in between them. So I want you to think, where is 645 going to go? $645 is kind of a tricky number. It actually goes right in the middle of 640 and 650. It is exactly the same distance from both of them. When this happens, you have to think of it as it's just going to keep on going. So instead of going backwards, it's going to keep going forward. So whenever it is exactly in the middle, you're going to just go ahead and let it go to the bigger number. So 645 is an equal distance from both numbers. So that means that 645 will round to 650. Now we're going to look at rounding to the nearest hundred. So the first number that we're going to look at is 268. And we're going to the nearest hundred, so we have to decide which two hundreds are going to be our benchmark numbers. So which two hundreds are going to be on either side of 268. So the first number is going to be 200 and then 300. And we are going to plot those, we're going to plot our number of 268. I know it's a little bit past the halfway mark, so I'm going to bring it over here. Then I am going to decide which number is it closest to. So is 268 closer to 200? Or is 268 closer to 300? If you said that 268 is closer to 300, you are correct. So that means that 268 is going to round to 300. We can look at another one with our hundreds, rounding to our nearest hundreds, but this time you'll see that it has a thousands place. So just like we did with the tens, if it's in front of the hundreds place, it's going to remain the same number. So I have 5,200 on one side, and I have 5,300 on the other side. What is the next thing I have to do? If you said plot the number, you are correct. So our number 5,268 is right here. It's really close to 5,200. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, is it closer to 5,200 or is it closer to 5,300? Since it's right here next to 5,200, it is closer to 5,200. And that means, sorry, that should say so. So 5,268 will round to 5,200. Let's make it a little more difficult. So now we're going to look at the thousands place. So I'm going to round this first number, 1,115, to the nearest thousand. So the first thing I do is I decide which my benchmark numbers are going to be. So this is going to be 1,000 and this is going to be 2,000. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually plot where 1,115 is going to go. And I think it's going to go somewhere around here. What am I going to do next? If you said I'm going to decide which number is closer, you are correct. So I'm able to see that 1,115 is closer to 1,000. So that means that 1,115 rounds to 1,000. If I make it a little bit harder, still looking at only rounding to the nearest thousand, I'm going to look at the number 34,874. And I want to round this to the nearest thousand. So the first thing I do is determine what my 2,000s are going to be for my benchmark numbers. So I have 34,000 and I have 35,000. Now the number I have is 34,874. So I have to figure out where that's going to go. Well, I know right here is right in the middle, so that would be 34,500. So I'm going to go over a little bit more and I'm going to plot it somewhere around here. Now I have to decide, is 34,874 closer to 34,000 or is it closer to 35,000? If you said 35,000, you are correct. So 34,874 is closer to 35,000. So that means that 34,874 rounds to 35,000. I can do the same thing by making it a little bit harder by going to my 10,000s place. So the first number I have is 45,987. And I want to go to the nearest 10,000. So the first thing I do is decide what these two tick marks are going to be. So I have to decide what are the two benchmark numbers to the 10,000s place for 45,987. So this one right here is going to be 40,000. So our next one we're going to look at is 45,987, and we're going to round this to the nearest 10,000. So when we do that, the first thing we have to do is decide what our benchmark numbers are going to be. So on this side it's going to be 40,000, and on this side it's going to be 50,000. After that I'm going to plot the number. Well, 45,987 is pretty close to the middle, so that's why I plotted it right in the middle. After I do that, I'm going to decide which one it is closest to. Is it closer to 40,000 or is it closer to 50,000? This one's a little bit tricky. It is very close to being in the middle, but it is a little bit closer to 50,000. So 45,987 is closer to 50,000. So that means that 45,987 rounds to 50,000. Here is our next one. It's a little bit harder, still to the 10,000s place, but you'll notice there's a 100,000s place built in. So remember, the 100,000s place is going to stay the same. We are first going to determine the two 10,000s that we're going to round to, and then we're going to plot the number. So I know that 123,456 to the nearest 10,000 is going to be 120,000 and 130,000. And 123,456 is going to be closer to 120,000, so I'm going to plot it right about here. I'm going to draw my lines to help me see that it is closer. And then I'm going to write my statement that tells me that. Our last one we're going to look at is to our 100,000s place. So the first one, or I'm sorry, the number that we're going to look at is 357,874, and I want to go to the nearest hundred thousands. So I'm going to say that that is going to be 300,000 and 400,000. After I've decided my benchmark numbers, I'm going to plot where 357,874 is going to go. It's going to go right about here. Then I'm going to decide which number is closer. So I had to decide if 337,874 was closer to 300,000 or 400,000. And I'm able to see with my line that it is closer to 300,000. So that means that 337,874 rounds to 300,000. So let's review what we talked about today. We talked about how to round a whole number given to a place value through the hundred thousands place. We reviewed our important vocabulary word of rounding. We used number lines to model rounding. We determined which number another number rounds to by looking at benchmark numbers. And now you are going to actually practice rounding numbers with a number line. And remember, we're doing this because it's important to know how to round, so we're able to use rounding to help us with estimation, which, like I said, we're going to talk about next week. So now it is your turn. You are going to round different numbers to specified places by doing exactly what we just talked about. You're going to draw a number line. You're going to determine the two benchmark numbers. You're going to plot the given number. And you're going to decide which benchmark number is closer to the given number, and then you're going to complete the rounding statement. So your activity is going to look like this. You're going to have 6 different numbers, and I'm going to ask you to round to different places. On the right-hand side, I have given you the reminders of what I would like to see. So I have given you your number line. You are going to tell me what the two benchmark numbers are. You are going to plot the number wherever it needs to go. You're going to actually draw the lines from that number to both of the different benchmark numbers. You're going to decide which one it's closer to, and you're going to complete this rounding statement. So you're going to write 87 is closer to whatever the number is. So 87 rounds to whatever it's going to round to. If you have any questions, please ask your teacher. I'll see you next week.